I found my stepmom's secret texts about me. Her reaction was unbelievable. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Don't you dare show him that, Denise hissed, and for the first time in 12 years, she looked scared. We were standing in my dad's dining room with his 61st birthday cake sweating on the sideboard, candles still unlit because Denise had insisted on the perfect photo first. My phone was in my hand, screen brightness all the way up, and her private texts were stacked in a folder labeled by date like a mini criminal case. Dad, Tom, was staring at me like I'd just brought a weapon into his house. Caleb was halfway out of his chair. Aunt Rochelle had gone completely still, the way she does when she knows the next 10 minutes will change a family. I'm Maya, 29, project coordinator at a nonprofit clinic in the city, the person in this family who gets called dramatic for remembering details and too independent for not asking Dad for money. I pay my own rent. I keep a color-coded calendar. And until 2 weeks ago, I thought the tension with my stepmom was just one of those permanent family rashes you learn not to scratch in public. Denise and I were never warm, but we were functional. Holiday hug, functional. How's work? Functional. Can you pass the salad? Functional. The kind of polite where every sentence sounds normal and still leaves a bruise. If you'd asked me a month earlier what my biggest issue with her was, I would have said the little things. How she introduced me as Tom's daughter from his first marriage to her friends. How she always forgot I don't drink red wine and poured it anyway. How she'd say, "We're so proud of Caleb for being family-oriented," while looking directly at me because I lived 40 minutes away and worked weekends sometimes. I didn't know she was texting people that I was unstable, greedy, and trying to take Dad's house. I didn't know she'd been editing the story of our family one message at a time. And I definitely didn't know the screenshots in my hand were about to blow open more than just her opinions. Then Denise saw the lock screen and stopped breathing for a second. If you only saw Denise in public, you'd think I was lucky. She was the woman who remembered everyone's birthdays, wrote handwritten thank you cards, and somehow looked calm while hosting 12 people in clothes. She did charity luncheons, posted tasteful centerpieces, and called waiters by name. People loved saying, "Your stepmom is amazing." And I always smiled because explaining 1,000 paper cuts sounds insane when someone is admiring the knife. Dad met Denise 3 years after my mom died. I was 17 and angry at basically oxygen, so I don't pretend I made it easy. But I also know the difference between a teenager being difficult and an adult quietly competing with a teenager for emotional territory. Denise could do both sweetness and erasure at the same time. She'd say, "Maya, your mother would be so proud." Then rearrange the framed family photos so Mom's picture ended up behind a lamp. Dad's answer to all tension was, "Let's not make this a thing." At first, I thought that meant time would fix it. Then time turned it into a pattern. When Caleb was in college, Denise texted him care packages and tracked his flights. When I moved into my first apartment, she brought a plant and said, smiling, "This area is up and coming," like she was complimenting a parking lot. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, she told her friends, "I work in administration." Even though I manage grant schedules and patient referrals at a clinic that is constantly one budget cut away from collapse. I corrected her once. She laughed and said, "Same difference, honey." The small moment I couldn't shake happened last spring. Dad grilled on the patio, Caleb was fixing the speaker, and Denise handed out place cards for fun because she'd done one of her themed dinners. Mine was at the little end table near the sliding door, not the patio table. One chair, folding, beside the cooler. I held the card and said, "Is this a joke?" She touched my arm like we were girlfriends. "Oh no, I just assumed you might need to leave early for work." Dad looked over, saw my face, and said, "Come on, Maya, don't be sensitive." I sat by the cooler and listened to them laugh over a story I hadn't heard before. The night I found the texts, I realized that place card wasn't random at all. I found the first text on a Tuesday because of potato salad. Dad had invited me over early to help move chairs from the garage before his birthday dinner weekend. Denise was in full prep mode, hair clipped up, voice bright, kitchen counters lined with sticky notes. "Can you pull up the recipe from my iPad?" she called while carrying groceries in from the car. "It's on the counter by the fruit bowl. My hands are full." Normal request. Normal day. That's the part one keep replaying. The iPad lit up when I tapped it. No passcode because they were home, and a banner notification slid down before I even opened Safari. Messages. The preview was from a contact saved as Nina Pilates. It said, "She's here early. Watch your purse, lol." For a second, I genuinely thought it was about someone else. Then another banner stacked on top of it, same thread. Tom gets soft when Maya does the quiet victim act. I'm not dealing with that today. I just stood there in Denise's kitchen holding her iPad, hearing grocery bags rustle in the driveway, feeling like the room had tilted a little. My first instinct wasn't anger. It was embarrassment. Like I had walked into a conversation where everyone knew the joke and I was the punchline. Denise came back in, saw me staring, and smiled. "You okay?" I fumbled and opened Safari so fast I hit the weather app first. "Yeah, just looking for the recipe." She leaned over my shoulder, so close I could smell her perfume, and pointed. "Use the bookmark bar. You always overcomplicate things." Always. I found the recipe, set the iPad down, and helped her chop celery while my heartbeat did weird little sprints. She chatted about table linens and how Caleb might bring a date. I answered like a robot and kept hearing that phrase in my head, quiet victim act. Maybe it was private venting. Mean but private. Maybe I shouldn't have seen it. Maybe I should have let it go. Then the iPad buzzed again beside the cutting board, and Denise lunged for it too fast. That was the moment I knew the first message wasn't the real problem. I tried to let it go for exactly 43 minutes. I know because I checked the time on my phone when I started rinsing dishes and checked it again when Denise went upstairs to take a call and left the iPad charging on the desk in the den. 4:17 p.m. to 5 p.m. 43 minutes of me arguing with myself like a jury avoiding the case. Don't snoop. She's allowed to vent. You already know she doesn't like you. If you open it, you become the problem. Then Dad asked from the patio, "Maya, can you bring the speaker cable out of the den?" And I walked to the exact desk where the iPad was plugged in, screen waking up as I reached for the cable. Another banner. Same thread. If she starts one of her dead mom guilt moods, redirect Tom. Birthday weekend is not about her. My chest went hot. I wish I could say I made a noble choice. I didn't. I tapped the notification. The thread opened to months of messages between Denise and Nina. Not one bad joke. Not one stressed rant. A running commentary on me. Screenshots of my Instagram stories. Play-by-plays after family dinners. Denise calling me performative, clingy with Tom when money gets mentioned. And this one actually made my hands shake. Dangerous when cornered because she remembers everything. There were lies mixed in with insults, which hurt worse. Told Rochelle Maya screamed at me again. Had to set boundaries. I have never screamed at Denise in my life. Tom was going to invite her to the attorney meeting. I said she'd only make it about inheritance. Attorney meeting? What attorney meeting? I heard water running upstairs and nearly dropped the iPad. I backed out, but not before my eyes caught a photo Denise had sent, my text to Dad from last month, cropped to remove the part where I asked if he needed groceries. Her caption to Nina, "See? Always fishing for a reason to insert herself." I put the iPad exactly where it had been and carried the speaker cable outside, trying to look normal. Dad smiled. Lifesaver. Denise came down 10 minutes later, kissed his cheek, and said, "Can you slice the tomatoes, sweetheart?" I cut them perfectly while deciding whether I was overreacting or finally waking up. Then I saw who else Denise had forwarded my messages to. I barely slept that night. I kept rereading the 3 blurry photos I'd managed to snap of the iPad screen from my lap in the bathroom. Crooked, reflection on the glass, one line cut off. Not enough to prove a pattern. More than enough to ruin my appetite. Every time I looked at Denise's words, I heard her daytime voice saying "sweetheart," like we were close. By morning, I was already bargaining with myself. Maybe Nina brought out the worst in her. Maybe Denise was exaggerating for attention. Maybe the attorney meeting was something harmless and she just didn't want family drama. Maybe. That Saturday, I went back to the house for final party prep because I'm apparently a glutton for emotional injury. Denise greeted me at the door with a hug. A hug. "There's my girl," she said. "Can you taste the frosting? I think it's too sweet." My skin actually crawled. I tasted the frosting. It was fine. She laughed and dabbed a little on my nose like I was 10. Dad saw us and smiled, relieved, because to him visible politeness equals peace. Then Denise said, casually, "Oh, and thank you for understanding about the attorney consult. Tom gets overwhelmed with paperwork." I stared at her. What attorney consult? She didn't miss a beat. Estate planning. Boring adult stuff. We didn't want to stress you. Stress me. Not invite me. Then call me dramatic for noticing. I nodded like the floor wasn't moving. Right. Later, while setting plates in the den, I noticed Denise's phone lighting up on the arm of the couch. The preview was from a group chat called Book Club, No Man. Did Maya ask about the attorney thing? Keep calm. She clocks everything. That exact phrase. She clocks everything. The same wording she'd used with Nina. Same tone. Same strategy voice. I put the plate down and walked to the kitchen, where Denise was arranging flowers. Need anything else? I asked. She smiled without looking at me. Just good energy today. I smiled back hard enough to make my jaw ache. That was when I stopped asking if I was imagining things and started planning. I didn't confront Denise because anger wanted a scene and I needed a record. The next 3 days, I acted like nothing happened and turned into the most boring version of myself. I answered Denise's texts with thumbs-up emojis. I sent Dad a photo of the clinic's fundraiser sign. I even thanked Denise in the family group chat for hosting such a beautiful dinner prep night, which made me feel nauseous but kept her relaxed. Then I started documenting. First, the easy stuff, notification previews. Denise left devices face up constantly because she trusted her own image too much. I caught messages on the kitchen counter, on the patio table, once in the car when she handed me her phone to read directions, and a banner slid down mid-turn. I never opened anything in front of her after that first day. I photographed previews with timestamps visible on my lock screen. Second, contradictions. I made a note in Notes called Denise Timeline and logged everything she said to my face versus what I saw in previews. We didn't want to stress you, Saturday 11:12 a.m. versus do not let Maya into a state meeting, preview, Friday 8:04 p.m. Rochelle is being weird versus Rochelle believes Maya screamed. Third, old evidence. This part came from dumb luck and Denise's need to curate memories. She'd asked me months ago to help make a photo album and had emailed me exports from her phone. Buried in that old email thread were accidental screenshots she never realized she attached, cropped messages, a call log with Dad, and a photo of handwritten note that matched phrases she kept repeating about me. I took all of it to Aunt Rochelle at a coffee shop near my apartment because if I told Dad first, he'd ask for calm and warn Denise. Rochelle read in silence, glasses low on her nose, then looked up and said, "This is not venting. This is narrative management." I feel crazy for taking pictures of notifications, I said. You'll feel crazier if you confront her without proof. She pushed my phone back. Document dates. Back everything up. Don't let her make this about privacy before it's about lying. I nodded, and Rochelle added, softer. And brace yourself for this to be bigger than your feelings. That night, I backed up the folder, and one screenshot changed everything. The screenshot that changed everything wasn't even the cruelest one. It was a text thread with Caleb. I almost missed it because Denise had renamed the contact with a blue heart emoji and his middle name, which is the kind of small thing people do when they're close enough to be trusted. The preview I'd photographed in the car only showed the top line. When I zoomed in that night, I could read the rest. Don't mention this to Maya yet. She spirals and then blames everyone. Just tell her Dad's tired. The timestamp was from the week Dad had that overnight hospital stay for pneumonia in March. I had shown up to the hospital after work with soup and a charger, and the front desk told me only immediate family had been approved that evening. I remember sitting in my car crying in the parking garage because immediate family felt like a sentence. Dad later told me he thought I was busy and couldn't come until the next day. Now I knew why. Once I saw Caleb's thread, the pattern spread everywhere. Denise wasn't just venting to Nina or gossiping in Book Club, No Man. She was sending tailored versions of me to different people depending on what she needed from them. To Caleb, I was unstable and unpredictable. To Rochelle, I was disrespectful and explosive. To Dad's sister on another thread preview I caught, I only called when I needed money. To a neighborhood friend, I was cold and punishing Dad for remarrying. Some of the messages included screenshots of my actual texts, cropped to remove context. A message where I asked Dad, "Can we talk tomorrow? I'm worried about your blood pressure and the stairs," became Denise's caption. See? She's angling to control the house conversation again. House conversation. I started linking dates in my timeline, and old arguments suddenly made sense. Why Caleb had gone weirdly distant after March. Why Rochelle kept asking if Denise and I had another blow-up when there had never been one. Why Dad looked tired whenever I asked simple questions about paperwork. It wasn't that my family knew me and chose Denise. It was that Denise had been introducing them to a fake version of me for months. Then I found the messages about Dad's will and the lake house. The lake house was never a mansion or some giant inheritance fantasy. It's a small cedar place 2 hours north, built by my grandparents, with warped floorboards, a dock Dad repairs every summer, and a kitchen window where my mom used to tape handwritten grocery lists. My grandmother put it in a family trust before she died. Dad and Aunt Rochelle are co-trustees, and someday Caleb and I each get a share. It's the only asset in this family that feels like memory instead of status. Denise always smiled too hard when people talked about it. The texts made her reason obvious. I caught a preview on Denise's phone Monday morning when she was showing me a centerpiece photo she wanted opinions on. The contact was Dad. The message started, "Attorney says cleaner to transfer before Tom's birthday if Maya won't cooperate." I said, "You can just email me the photo," handed the phone back, and left before my face gave me away. That night, I compared dates and found more. Denise had told Nina that the estate consult was to protect Tom from future challenges. She told Book Club that I was obsessed with the lake house because it's the only thing she can't afford on her own. She told someone else, I only had the partial preview, that if Maya is framed as hostile now, the transfer looks reasonable. Framed as hostile, not if Maya is hostile. If she is framed that way. I called Rochelle and read the messages out loud. Rochelle went silent, then said, "Tom cannot transfer trust property alone if your grandmother's paperwork is still what I think it is." Then why would Denise say that? Because either she doesn't understand the documents, Rochelle said, or she's trying to push him into doing something before anyone checks. I sat on my apartment floor with my laptop open, timeline on one side, screenshots on the other, and felt the story shift under me. This wasn't Denise being mean because she disliked me. This was Denise building a case against me before a property decision, using Dad's fear of conflict as fuel. And if she'd been handling his messages during his hospital stay, I had no idea what else she'd controlled. Then Caleb texted me something he'd never meant to admit. Caleb's text came in at 11:48 p.m. Random question. Did you actually tell Denise she only married Dad for the house? I stared at it so long my screen dimmed. I typed back, no? Why? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, came back. Caleb has always been like that. He edits himself in real time, especially when feelings are involved. She brought it up again tonight. Said that's why she didn't trust you at the hospital. Thought maybe I missed something. My hands were shaking, but I kept the reply plain. I never said that. Can we talk tomorrow? Coffee. Just us. He agreed, reluctantly, like he could already sense the cliff edge. At the coffee shop the next afternoon, Caleb showed up in a baseball cap and that tense jaw he gets when he expects to mediate. I didn't start with accusations. I asked questions. Did Denise tell you I screamed at her? He looked down. She said there were a couple incidents. There were 0. He rubbed his forehead. She also said you asked Dad for a loan last winter and got mad when he said no. I laughed once, not because it was funny. I sent Dad money last winter when his pipes froze. He blinked. What? I opened my banking app and showed him the transfer from January 14th, memo line, plumber/deductible. Then I showed him the text thread with Dad thanking me and promising to pay me back. Then I showed him a screenshot of Denise's message to Nina from January 15th. Maya tried the money angle again. Told Tom to stop enabling. Caleb went pale. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, that's bad. Did she tell you not to mention the hospital to me? He took a long breath and nodded. She said you were spiraling and Dad needed calm. She had his phone for a while because he was sleeping. There it was. Not a misunderstanding. Access. Rochelle joined us 20 minutes later with a folder from her house. Copies of the trust summary my grandmother had shared years ago. She tapped the section on successor shares and said, "No one can cleanly transfer Maya out without signatures and disclosures." Caleb looked from the papers to my screenshots and whispered, "She's been setting this up." I thought we were finally studying the facts. Then Denise called Caleb while we were all sitting together. Caleb stared at his phone like it had bitten him. Denise. Calling. 3:26 p.m. Rochelle mouthed, "Answer," and tapped speaker, but Caleb shook his head hard. If she hears you guys, she'll know. He stepped outside. Through the coffee shop window, I watched him pace between two planters while Denise's voice leaked through his phone in bursts whenever he turned. Even from inside, I could hear the tone, light, teasing, then sharp. When he came back, he looked embarrassed. She asked if I was with you. What did you say? I said I was at work. Rochelle snorted. So she knows you're lying. Caleb ignored that and looked at me. She said you seemed off and wanted me to make sure you weren't planning to ruin Dad's birthday with old grievances. Old grievances. We hadn't said a word to her. By that evening, Denise was texting me directly, extra sweet. Can you come by tomorrow earlier? I'd love your help setting up the photo board. I found some pictures of your mom you might want. Miss you. Let's have a calm talk before everyone arrives. Denise had never once texted miss you in her life. I almost took the bait because part of me wanted to hear her explain. Not because I believed she could fix it, but because confrontation is a fever. Once you have proof, you want release. I drafted 3 different responses, including one that began with a screenshot and ended with, "Explain this." Instead, I drove to Rochelle's house with my laptop. She read Denise's messages and said, "Classic isolation move. She wants you alone so she can test what you know and later retell it." I hate that she's good at this, I said. Rochelle poured tea like we were discussing weather. People who manage appearances practice more than people who tell the truth. We built a simple rule list on a yellow notepad. No private confrontation. No accusations without documents in front of witnesses. Let Denise lie first. When I got home, I sent Denise the blandest message possible. Sure, I can come early and help with decorations. She replied in 11 seconds. Perfect. Just us girls. I screenshotted that too, because by then every heart emoji felt like evidence. The next morning, Dad called and said something that almost blew our entire plan. Dad called while I was labeling screenshot folders. "Hey kid," he said, too cheerful. "Small change. Denise thought it might be easier if we do family photos before dinner, and then maybe you and I can talk privately afterward. She says you've seemed tense." There it was, separate me from witnesses, then smooth it over. I kept my voice neutral. "Actually, can we all talk before cake? I have something important, and I don't want to repeat it 12 times. A pause. "Maya, if this is about hurt feelings." "It's about facts," I said. "Please." Another pause, longer. "Fine." Briefly. As soon as we hung up, I went full project manager mode. I exported every screenshot into an album and duplicated it to cloud storage. I made a note with dates, exact wording, and where each image came from. Denise iPad kitchen counter October 8th, 4:17 p.m. Denise phone directions app banner October 10th, 9:42 a.m. Caleb confirmation text October 13th, 11:48 p.m. I printed key screenshots because phones can be grabbed, screens can die, and I didn't trust Denise not to make a scene. Rochelle came over to my apartment that afternoon and watched me lay everything on the coffee table in chronological order. "Lead with the least deniable," she said. "Something she can't call a misunderstanding. The hospital message?" She nodded, then moved to the cropped screenshots and the framed as hostile line. "Save the lake house stuff until Tom's listening." Caleb arrived 20 minutes later, looked at the printouts, and sat down on my floor. I didn't realize how much there was. "That's the point," Rochelle said. "She counted on each of you seeing only one version. We rehearsed nothing dramatic. Just sequence. If Denise interrupted, I'd keep reading. If Dad tried to postpone, Rochelle would insist. If Denise accused me of invasion, I'd say, we can discuss privacy after we discuss false statements and interference. Before I left for the birthday dinner, I put the printouts in a plain manila folder and set my phone to auto-upload new photos. At 6:42 p.m., Denise opened the front door, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "I'm so glad we're getting a moment alone first." Then she led me straight into Dad's den and shut the door. The den smelled like Dad's cologne. Denise closed the door behind us and smiled. "I just wanted to clear the air before guests arrive," she said. "You seemed activated." I set the manila folder on Dad's desk. "Great. Let's clear it." Her smile flickered. "What's that?" "Screenshots." She laughed once. "Of what?" Before I could answer, Dad pushed the door open. Caleb was behind him. Rochelle appeared a second later. Dad looked around. "Why is everyone in here?" I said, "Because this needs witnesses." Denise crossed her arms. "Tom, this is what I was talking about. Maya gets theatrical when she's stressed. Read this first, I said, and handed Dad the printout of Denise's message to Caleb from the hospital week. Don't mention this to Maya yet. She spirals. Just tell her Dad's tired. Dad frowned. What is this? A text your wife sent Caleb while you were in the hospital. The night I was turned away. Denise's voice went soft and offended. You went through my messages? Rochelle stepped in. Answer the content, Denise. Denise looked at Caleb. I was trying to protect your father. Maya was upset and making everything bigger. I wasn't there because I was told I couldn't visit, I said. Dad told me later he thought I was too busy. Those can't both be true. Dad turned to Caleb. Did she send this? Caleb swallowed. Yes. Denise immediately pivoted. Without context. Maya was overwhelmed. I was managing calls. I opened the folder and slid out the next 2 pages. A screenshot of my text asking about Dad's blood pressure and groceries. Then Denise's cropped version sent to Nina with the caption, "See? She's angling to control the house conversation again." Here's context, I said. Mine and yours. Dad read one, then the other, then looked up. Why would you crop it? Denise's face changed. Not panic yet, but calculation. Because Nina doesn't need my entire private family thread, Tom. This is ridiculous. Maya has been obsessed with being included in estate matters, and now she's spying, because she feels entitled. I pulled out the page she didn't know I had printed. Then Denise saw the words framed as hostile now in black ink. Everything after that happened fast and weirdly slow at the same time. Dad read the printout with the line, "If Maya is framed as hostile now, the transfer looks reasonable," and sat down in his desk chair like his knees had made the decision for him. Caleb said, "Mom," then stopped, because even he didn't know what to call her in that moment. Denise took 1 step forward and held out her hand. "Give me that." "No," I said. "Tom, this is edited," she snapped, dropping the soft voice entirely. "She's been waiting to humiliate me." I pulled out my phone and opened the live photos of the previews, timestamps visible. You can see the dates. You can see your contact names. Caleb already confirmed the hospital text. Denise lunged, not at me exactly, but at the folder, and a stack of printouts hit the carpet. Dad stood up, so suddenly the chair rolled backward into the bookcase. "Denise," he shouted. That should have been the end of it. A denial, some crying, maybe a storm out. Instead, Denise clutched her chest and slid down against Dad's desk, breathing in dramatic little gasps. "I can't do this," she said. "This is abuse. I have a heart condition. Tom, make her stop." Caleb moved instinctively toward her. Rochelle put an arm out across his chest and said, very calm, "If you need medical help, we call 911. If not, stand up and answer." Denise's breathing changed instantly. Not better, different, controlled. She looked at Rochelle with pure hate, then turned to Dad and said the quiet part out loud. "I did what I had to do because she keeps a hook in you," she said, pointing at me from the floor. "Everyone still treats this house like it belongs to your first life, your first wife, your first family. Every conversation becomes Maya, 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 and I am the one actually here." Dad stared at her. "So you lied?" "I manage things," she shot back. "Because you won't. Because she questions every decision. And yes, I wanted the lake house situation settled before she made a scene and poisoned Caleb against us." Caleb actually took a step back from her. Then Denise said one more thing none of us were prepared to hear. She said, "Tom already signed the draft amendment." The room went silent in that ugly, airless way silence gets when everyone is doing math at once. Dad looked confused. "What amendment?" Denise pushed herself up from the floor, smoothing her dress like she was recovering stage position. "The one your attorney emailed. The trust and estate updates. You signed the packet in August." Rochelle's voice turned razor flat. "Tom, did you read a packet, or did you sign where Denise pointed?" Dad opened his mouth, closed it, and I knew the answer. Caleb whispered, "Mom, what the hell?" Guests started arriving downstairs right on schedule. Doorbell, laughter, someone calling happy birthday. While in the den, our family was splitting open on top of a manila folder. Denise heard the voices and grabbed for normalcy. "Not tonight," she said sharply. "We are not doing this tonight. Tom, tell them we'll discuss it privately." "No," Dad said. "No, we're doing this now." What followed was not cinematic. It was messy, repetitive, and exhausting. Denise denied wording, admitted tone issues, blamed stress, blamed menopause, blamed Rochelle, blamed me for baiting her by being distant, then circled back to saying she was protecting the marriage. Dad kept asking variations of the same question. Did you tell people Maya said this? Did you keep messages from me? Did you send that? And every answer made his face look older. Rochelle called the attorney from the hallway and left a voicemail stating there was a dispute and no further signatures should be processed until both trustees reviewed the documents together. Caleb forwarded me old texts Denise had sent him while sitting 3 feet away from her, which hurt. I left before cake, because I was shaking so hard I couldn't trust myself to stay kind, and I wanted my first boundary to be something I chose, not something Denise could frame as another scene. The fallout came fast after that. Dad sleeping in the guest room, Caleb not answering Denise's calls for 2 days, Rochelle taking over communication about the trust documents, and me sending Dad one email with 3 conditions for any contact. He replied at 1:12 a.m. with 4 words I never expected from him. Dad's email said, "You were telling the truth. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times and still cried harder than I did in the den." An apology doesn't rewind months of being misread. It doesn't erase the hospital parking garage, the place card by the cooler, or all the tiny moments Denise weaponized while smiling. But I'll be honest, hearing my father finally name reality mattered. It mattered enough that I answered the next morning instead of waiting a week. My conditions were simple and in writing. No conversations about moving on until he reviewed the screenshots and trust documents with Rochelle present. No passing messages through Denise. No private meetings where I'd be asked to keep peace by minimizing facts. If he wanted a relationship with me, it had to be direct and honest. For the first time in my life, I didn't soften that boundary to make him comfortable. The practical fallout took months. The draft amendment was paused. Rochelle and Dad met with the attorney together and corrected the trust paperwork. Caleb apologized for believing Denise's version and then, to his credit, started checking stories instead of absorbing them. Denise moved out, temporarily, to stay with a friend. Last I heard, she was still telling people I ambushed her over a misunderstanding. Maybe she believes that. Manipulation gets weird when it runs out of witnesses. As for me, I started therapy, muted the family group chat for a while, and stopped confusing access with love. That was the biggest lesson. Just because someone has a title, stepmom, spouse, parent, doesn't mean they get unlimited control over the story of you. If you're dealing with family gaslighting, here's the least glamorous advice that saved me. Document patterns, not just feelings. Save screenshots. Note dates. Compare what was said to what happened. And when you confront someone who lives on image, do it with witnesses and sequence, not rage. A few weekends ago, Dad met me at the lake house with a toolbox and 2 coffees. We fixed a loose dock plank in near silence, then sat on the edge with our shoes off, watching the water go silver.